Zishan on Air, live broadcast. बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मैं हूं ज़ीशान इसाक और आपको ज़ीशान ऑन एयर में वेलकम। सबसे पहले आपके लिए बाइडन और जो हमारे मुल्क के सदर हैं मौजूदा ट्रंप, उनकी टाउन हॉल मीटिंग्स के बारे में बताता चलूं। बहुत ही एक डिफरेंट कॉन्ट्रास्ट नजर आया दोनों की जो टाउन हॉल्स थी, और उन टाउन हॉल्स में क्या हुआ उसके लिए मैं समझता हूं कि ये जो एक छोटा सा चंद मिनट का मोन्टाज जो है, जो वॉशिंगटन पोस्ट ने पेश किया है, ये देखकर हमें काफी अंदाजा हो जाएगा। लेट्स वॉच दिस।
The Vice President and the People. Now,
President Trump Town Hall.
Welcome to our town hall with Joe Biden. Mr. Vice President, welcome to you.
Good to be with you.
Welcome, Mr. President, and thank you for being
that
here.
was very well stated, I have to say. Good job.
Do you have any remaining symptoms from COVID?
Nothing whatsoever. I'm great. I feel good.
And you don't know if you took a test the day of the debate?
Possibly I did. Possibly I didn't.
We're in a situation where we have 210 plus thousand people dead. And what's he doing? Nothing. He's still not wearing masks and so on.
And something happened, but as far as the mask is concerned, I'm good with masks. I'm okay with masks. I tell people wear masks. But just the other day, they came out with a statement that 85% of the people that wear masks catch it.
Well,
so, you know, this is a very
I know that
tricky,
study.
well, that's what I heard, and that's what I saw.
And when a president doesn't wear a mask or makes fun of folks like me when I was wearing a mask for a long time, then, you know, people say, well, it mustn't be that important.
If a vaccine were approved, would you take it? Would you mandate that everyone has to take it?
Yes, I would take it. I'd encourage people to take it. We should be thinking about making it mandatory.
How could you enforce that?
Well, you couldn't. That's the problem. Just like you can't enforce measles.
Why does it seem like
I denounce white supremacy? Okay,
you did
I've
2 days
denounced
later.
white supremacy for years. You didn't ask Joe Biden whether or not he denounces Antifa, and frankly, you want to know something? I denounce Antifa.
While we're denouncing, let me ask you about QAnon. It is this theory that Democrats are a satanic pedophile ring and that you are the savior of that.
I know nothing about QAnon.
I just told you.
I know very little. You told me, but what you tell me doesn't necessarily make it fact.
Just this week, you retweeted to your 87 million followers a conspiracy theory.
That was a retweet. I'll put it out there. People can decide for themselves.
You're
I don't
the
take
president.
a position.
You're not like someone's crazy uncle who can just retweet whatever.
If you lose, what will that say to you about where America is today?
I hope that it doesn't say that we are as racially, ethnically, and religiously at odds with one another as it appears the president wants us to be.
They're talking about ballots that are corrupt, that are fraudulent.
And your own FBI director says there is no evidence of widespread fraud.
Well, then he's not doing a very good job.
What do you say to those Americans to maybe tell them why you want the corporate tax rate lower and why that helps them?
It's a great question. We've created more jobs than this country has ever created. And if Biden comes in and raises taxes on everybody, and you'll end up with a depression, the likes of which you've never had.
He talks about a V-shaped recovery. It's a K-shaped recovery. If you're on the top, you're going to do very well. If you're in the middle or the bottom, your income is coming down.
The Trump administration has attacked the rights of transgender people. How will you, as president, reverse this dangerous and discriminatory agenda?
I will flat out just change the law. There should be zero discrimination.
I've done more for the African American community than any president, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln.
We shouldn't be defunding cops. We should be mandating the things that we should be doing within police departments and make sure there's total transparency.
वेलकम बैक टू ज़ीशान ऑन एयर। ये जो के शेप्ड इकोनॉमी की बात की है ना, वीपी बाइडन एंड आवर नेक्स्ट प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका, इंशाल्लाह, बहुत जबरदस्त ये बात है। के शेप्ड इकोनॉमी यानी के शेप में आप देखिए कि पीपल हु आर डूइंग वेल, हु आर मिलियनियर्स, मल्टी मिलियनियर्स, पीपल हु आर मेकिंग 400K एंड अबव, तो कोई उनके लिए मसला नहीं है, इसलिए क्योंकि यू आर मेकिंग इनफ इनकम यानी इतनी इनकम कि आपको पता नहीं वो पैसे कहाँ लेके जाने, किसको देने, क्या करना है, क्योंकि आज तक कब्र में तो कोई लेके गया नहीं और ना ही ले जा सकता है। तो वो के शेप इकोनॉमी का मकसद ही यही है कि आप अगर टॉप पे हैं, वेरी गुड, मिडिल में भी हैं, अबव एवरेज अमेरिकन इन टर्म्स ऑफ इनकम, तो भी आपके लिए बहुत जबरदस्त ट्रेजेक्टरी है। लेकिन अगर आप नीचे हैं या बिल्कुल आप के का जो नीचे आ रहा होता है, के की जो लाइन होती है जो ग्राउंड पे पर हिट करती है अल्लाह के आप Sorry for the technical difficulty. So we're back due to some technical glitch. तो के शेप इकोनॉमी पे बात हो रही थी। के शेप इकोनॉमी पर पीपल हु आर ऑलरेडी डूइंग गुड इन इकोनॉमी और मजीद ऊपर जाती है, दे विल डू इन फैक्ट सो वेल कि जिससे कि लगता है कि फिक्स्ड है इकोनॉमी टुवर्ड ए सर्टेन ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल जिनकी इनकम लेवल्स 400 के उससे अबव या 500 के उससे अबव, और पीपल हु आर बिलो दैट थ्रेशोल्ड, तो फिर वो नीचे ग्राफ जो है आपका आ रहा है डिक्लाइनिंग, क्योंकि आपके ऊपर वो प्रेशर्स आएंगे इकोनॉमिक वाइज, इन्फ्लेशन वाइज एंड ऑल दैट, कि जिससे वो इकोनॉमी सबके लिए काम नहीं करेगी। तो अब आज जो टॉपिक है उसमें एक तो अमेरिकन मुस्लिम वोटर्स और जो अमेरिकन मुस्लिम्स हैं, क्या वजह है कि अभी भी कुछ, बहुत ज्यादा नहीं लेकिन फिर भी काफी मुसलमान जो हैं वो ट्रंप को सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, जबकि मुस्लिम बैन ट्रंप ने प्रपोज किया और प्रपोज करने के बाद उसको इम्प्लीमेंट किया, और फिर सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने भी कहा कि क्योंकि भाई सदर जो है उसको लग रहा है खतरा तो कर दीजिए आप। तो यानी मुस्लिम्स जो है उनसे खतरा है। हालांकि कंबोडिया, वियतनाम, कोरिया, इराक वॉर और इन सब के बाद जब भी वॉर्स हुई हैं, आप देखिए वियतनामीज आए इतने इस मुल्क में, फिर कोरियंस आए इतने इस मुल्क में, रेफ्यूजीज भी आए और काफी आए, क्योंकि जाहिर सी बात है मुल्क तबाह हुए। तो अब जब वक्त था कि सीरिया और यहाँ से आते और वो मुसलमान, वो रेफ्यूजीज जो ईयर्स ऑफ वेटिंग है, तो भी उनको रोक लिया गया। फिर सिर्फ यही नहीं, इसके अलावा जब इंडिया का टूर किया था प्रेसिडेंट ने, तो वहां पर सिटीजनशिप अमेंडमेंट एक्ट और इतना ज्यादा जो रिलीजियस और माइनॉरिटीज उनके प्रोसिक्यूशन हो रहा है, इवन जब वो दिल्ली में थे, दिल्ली में, तो इवन एट दैट टाइम ही डिड नॉट कंडेम कि भाई ये किस तरह की फोर्स और जो ब्रूटल स्टेट पुलिस और जो अंडर द अथॉरिटी ऑफ द प्रोविंस और डायरेक्टली फ्रॉम दिल्ली, कि वो लोगों के ऊपर पुलिस खड़ी हुई तमाशा देख रही है और गुंडे जो आगे जा रहे हैं और पीपल जो वहां पर प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे हैं उनके ऊपर धावा बोला जा रहा है। सो प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ अमेरिका डिडंट से अ वर्ड। तो मुसलमान जो है इसके ऊपर भी खामोश रहेंगे कि कोई ऐसी बात नहीं। और सिर्फ यही नहीं, फिर उसके बाद जब मुस्लिम बैन हुआ था तो कितने लोग, मुझे याद है बिकॉज आई वाज देयर एट द इंटरनेशनल एयरपोर्ट जो यहाँ ह्यूस्टन में है, और कितने लोगों ने प्रोटेस्ट किया, क्योंकि अमेरिकन सिटीजन्स, उनके स्पाउसेस या उनकी फैमिलीज या उनके बच्चे और कितने जो जिनके वैलिड वीजाज भी थे, जो इवन परमानेंट रेसिडेंट जो ग्रीन कार्ड होल्डर्स थे, वो एयरपोर्ट्स पे जो है उनको रोक दिया गया। और वो एक ऐसा केओस जो है कि घंटों जो है वो डिटेन हुए या रुके रहे, और एक अजीब गरीब किस्म की वो फिजा थी जो एक पैरानोया और एक अजीब सिचुएशन जो है वो फिर क्रिएट कर देती है। हालांकि उन्हीं चीजों को बड़े डिफरेंट तरीके से भी मैनेज किया जा सकता था। और फिर आपको पता है रेटोरिक जो ट्रम्प का हमेशा से रहा है कि किस तरह लोगों को आपस में लड़वाया गया है और सब कुछ है। तो क्या बहैसियत मुसलमान होते हुए ये तमाम चीजें जो है यूर फाइन, आई थिंक इसमें बहुत से लोग जो मुझे कह भी रहे हैं और अक्सर मेरी लोगों से बात होती रही है कि उनको खदशात हैं कि पता नहीं ट्रम्प जो है कोई जंग कर देंगे। तो ये जो तमाम चीजें अभी हो रही हैं ये तो अंडर ट्रम्प वॉच हुई। और सिर्फ यही नहीं बल्कि खास तौर पर जब हम ये भी देखते हैं कि किस तरह से प्रॉक्सी वॉर्स और फिर एक फोर्स्ड तरीके से मुसलमान ममालिक पे प्रेशर डाल के भी जो एक एग्रीमेंट खासतौर पर इसराइल से साइन किया जा रहा है और जायनिस्ट जबकि वो इंडिपेंडेंट स्टेट जो पैलेस्टाइन है उसको नहीं मान रहे, प्री 1967 के बॉर्डर्स है उनको नहीं मान रहे, जो रेफ्यूजीज का राइट है और पैलेस्टीनियंस का राइट है टू रिटर्न टू देयर होमलैंड उसको नहीं मान रहा है, तो भी मुसलमान कह रहे हैं कोई बात नहीं, ये तो कोई ऐसे खदशात नहीं है। तो अमेरिकन मुस्लिम्स क्या आपके ऊपर प्रेशर है? आई मीन आप किसके दबाव में हैं? यानी या फिर लोग ये कह रहे हैं कि ये भी हो सकता है कि ये पता नहीं जंगे कर दें। तो ये तमाम मफरूजात और हाइपोथेटिकल्स में आप अपनी जिंदगी गुजार रहे हैं। एंड व्हाट्स हैपनिंग राइट नाउ एंड द पावर ऑफ नाउ जिसे कह लें या लम्हा मौजूद कह लें, उसमें आपको कोई यानी परेशानी नहीं हो रही और आप जो है कह रहे हैं बिल्कुल ये कुरान के बारे में कुछ कहें कि बहुत खतरनाक चीजें, इज ऑन रिकॉर्ड टू से दैट। और मुसलमानों को जिस तरीके से टारगेट करके अभी भी मुस्लिम बैंक इस मुल्क में मौजूद है, कोई ऐसी प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। तो व्हाट इज दैट? यानी क्या हम इस चीज को भी नहीं माने? हमारे साथ प्रोग्राम में भी लोग शामिल हो रहे हैं और उनको भी मैं प्रोग्राम में शामिल करता हूं। इसमें उस्मान हैज जॉइंड मी in Zishan on air. Hello, Usman. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Walaikum assalam. Yes, can you hear me, Zishan?
Yes, I can certainly hear you, and thanks for joining in. And Usman, we're discussing about the role of American Muslims as well, or American Muslim voters. Would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, thank you for having me first. I really appreciate it. मैं ये कहना चाहूँगा कि this is a golden opportunity for Muslims to show that we will not back President Trump and that his policies are harmful and racist, and that we support everyone who fights for justice, and that this is a race of our lifetime. The Constitution is being threatened, our rights are being threatened, and immigration rights are also being threatened. So these are all things that we need to be aware of. There's so many issues that I could speak of. The one that's most pressing for us personally is the Muslim ban. We need to make a clear message that the Muslim ban is unacceptable. Unfortunately, what is most surprising to me about President Trump and Muslim support is that Muslim support for him has actually risen since 2016. 2016 से लेकर आज तक, आज 30% support है Muslims का Trump के लिए, and especially among white Muslims, and this is absolutely unacceptable. So that's the first thing that I would say, कि national level पे we have to have a united voice against Trump. दूसरा मैं ये कहूँगा कि locally हम समझें कि local elections में भी जो हो रहा है वो पूरी दुनिया में उसका असर होगा, और उसकी वजह से हम local elections को भी बहुत अहमियत दें। मैं खास तौर से बोल रहा हूँ District 22 के बारे में।
Okay.
Any type of election or vote that may harm our brothers and sisters in India who are already suffering under the Prime Minister Modi, this is also unacceptable, and there is a huge chance that Sri Kulkarni will support RSS policies when he is in office, because he was specifically groomed to be an agent of RSS. And I have several proofs of this. The most recent thing that was striking to me about Sri Kulkarni is that his uncle was an important BJP member who was assassinated in 1996, and his cousin is currently serving as part of the BJP government in India. So for him to say that he does not know who is RSS or kya or kaun, to ye sab bahut jhoot hai.
वो तो ट्रम्प ने भी प्राउड बॉयज को एटलीस्ट 2 दिन के बाद कंडेम कर दिया था। इवन ही कंडेम प्राउड बॉयज बिकॉज़ ट्रम्प आल्सो सेड हु इज प्राउड बॉयज, कौन है प्राउड बॉयज भाई?
जी, तो मैं मतलब खास तौर से हम लोग जो पाकिस्तानी हैं, हम ये सोचें कि हमारे बाप दादा ने कितनी कुर्बानियां दी पाकिस्तान के लिए, तो इसमें क्या सेंस बनता है कि हम फिर उलट इस यहाँ पर इस मुल्क में एंटी पाकिस्तानी लोगों को सपोर्ट करें? ये बहुत गलत बात है। पाकिस्तान जो बना है उसकी वजह से अल्लाह का शुक्र है कितने मुसलमान लोग हिफाजत में हैं, और हम अपने इंडियन मुस्लिम बहन भाइयों को भी बिल्कुल ना भूलें, तो मैं ये कहना चाहूँगा।
ठीक है, थैंक यू उस्मान, आई अप्रिशिएट दैट। और कुछ और कहना चाहेंगे आप बिफोर आई लेट यू गो?
Sure. The other thing that I would like to say is that regardless of us being anti-Trump as a community, we have to be aware that Biden will not be the golden answer for us. It is truly a situation of lesser of two evils. And as our community grows as Muslims in America, we should be aware that we are not supporting any agent that is throwing our ummah under the bus, whether that is nefarious groups like M-Gage, who other people, inshallah, will talk about more, or it is any group that is hurting the Palestinian cause, the Pakistanis, the Kashmiris, the Bosnians, any group of Muslims, the Chinese Muslims who are currently suffering the most. तो हम इसको अपने दिमाग में आगे आगे रखें, और मैं बस दुआ करके मैं कोशिश करूँगा अपनी तरफ से पूरी तरह से कि ये इलेक्शन मुसलमानों के लिए अच्छा हो, इंशाल्लाह
आमीन,
ताला।
इंशाल्लाह। बहुत शुक्रिया, थैंक यू सो मच,
Thank you.
और थैंक्स फॉर कॉलिंग इन। और दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज वी हैव टू रिकॉग्नाइज कि जो सिचुएशन है, एंड वी हैव टू लुक एट द पॉलिसीज, और जो पॉलिसीज हैं जो बाइज रॉन्ग और बिल्कुल कह लीजिए कि अनएथिकल, जो इमिग्रेशन पॉलिसीज भी हमने देखी जो ट्रम्प की यानी कि आई हैं, ये तो इस वक्त इट्स हैपनिंग अंडर ट्रम्प्स वॉच, और फिर 217,000 अमेरिकन आर डेड। इतने तो किसी कंबाइंड वॉर्स में अब तक लोग जो हैं वो हलाक नहीं हुए, एंड दे आर डेड। और उसमें कितने हमारे अपने मुसलमान जो हैं, आई नो पर्सनली माई फ्रेंड्स एंड माई फ्रेंड्स रिलेटिव्स, दे आर नो मोर इन दिस वर्ल्ड बिकॉज ऑब्वियसली कोविड-19 की वजह से। और फिर ऑलमोस्ट 8 मिलियन इस वक्त इन्फेक्टेड हैं, इकोनॉमी तबाह हो चुकी है इस वक्त, जिस तरीके से मिलियंस ऑफ पीपल have no jobs, and it all happened under Trump's watch. इस वक्त हमारे साथ एक और हमारे कह लीजिए गेस्ट यहाँ पे मौजूद हैं। हेलो, अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm well, brother.
Thank you. Thanks for joining in. So we're discussing about the role of American Muslims, American Muslim voters. What would you like to say about that?
The role of American Muslim voters is very pivotal. It's very important right now because, they say every vote matters. So if one vote matters, we have, a few million Muslims here. So, you imagine if one vote matters, which direction you can slide an election with even 1 million votes. We have some organizations that claim to be bringing 1 million votes, but at the end of the day, we represent a very large, very diverse minority group. It's not restricted to just, our people, immigrants. We also have Black Muslims, Latino Muslims. We're a very well diverse group. So we can shift not only local elections, but also state elections and even our districts in a certain, direction that we want.
Absolutely. This article that, in fact, you shared as well, Z, if I go by your Z, or do you go with Zishan, because you're also Zishan, right? So
yes, sir.
Tell me about this article, because when I read this article, and it has this complete information about how some people are board directors with some defense contracts, and they happen to be American Muslims, and they are also part of the Biden campaign, and they are also obviously they are playing both sides, in fact. So is this the role of American Muslims, that people need to be opportunists, people need to be greedy, people need to be obviously selling out the Muslim Americans, and somehow try to paint everyone with the same brush, or in fact portray a picture that, we represent American Muslim, because obviously I'm not giving my right to any organization to represent me, because we live in America. It's a free society, and there are so many American Muslims, and then our youth, especially who have been born and raised in this country. And even I, for example, came as an immigrant and as a student a long time ago. And then obviously I was a teenager when I came to this country. But then I've lived more than half of my life in this country. So I am obviously a proud American. But am I going to just give up my right to these so-called organizations who somehow think that we are operating with some third world country mindset? I mean, what is this nonsense?
So there's opportunists, in every community. There's opportunists in every society, every industry. We have opportunists in corporate America. We have opportunists in our, local religious, communities, mosques, churches, whatever, right? Everywhere there's opportunists. But the problem here, right, is these particular opportunists have presented themselves as the voice of Muslims in total, right? And they have presented themselves and proclaimed themselves as a Muslim voting bloc, right? So we're basically being used as currency to exchange with politicians, different positions, right? Different political influence, and just even getting in on the table, right? They're using us as that currency.
Yeah.
And this is why it's an issue, right? I don't have a problem with anybody being an opportunist, but when you're stepping on the backs of us and when you're using us as that currency for you to get to where you want personally, that's when it's problematic, because then not only are you representing us as a whole in a negative way, right? But just imagine the non-Muslims viewing these people, right, as us, right? That's very shameful, even to a degree, to a high degree, actually.
So, for example, we heard about some groups like MLI, right? Muslim Leaders Initiative, which is a fact. And a lot of people, a lot of Muslims or average American Muslims, they don't even know what Muslim Leadership Initiative is. And that was in fact funded by Zionists, and it has been documented. And they take people on trips to different, obviously, holy lands in Palestine, and then they come back to us, and then they obviously solicit our votes, or they obviously engage us in obviously the campaigning of different candidates, or to your point, they try to represent us in that fashion. Should we be supporting them, or should we be more mindful of where are they being funded from, and how to basically make aware of an American average voter of these serious situations?
So the thing is, right, when we take a stand as a community and as a people against something that is wrong, whether it's an ideology, whether it's a set of principles, whether it's like a set of ideas that work counterintuitively to our people and to human rights, right? When we take that stand against something, it not only prevents this entity or this body or this group from coming in and representing us, but it also, in the long term, right, we might have a short-term loss here, right, in losing someone, but in the long term, we basically send a message, right, that, okay, we actually have filters, where like we won't settle for just the worst in our community to represent us, right, or the lowest level of people to represent us. We want better. We want better. Like, if you want our vote, right, our vote shouldn't be just based on you looking like us or you speaking our language. It has to also represent what you believe in, what you stand for, and what you're actually going to do for us, right? And if your past actions haven't indicated that you stand for us or stand for a set of principles or ideas that are good and beneficial, not only for us, but for humanity, right? Like, that is a greater benefit and a greater gain that we have, right? Because our people have this problem that we see what's in front of us, and even if it's bad, even if it's just, as a whole bad, we want to get it. We want to jump on it and just, like pounce onto it. And the issue with that is now you have this entity, this body, this group, this individual that now is what is going to be the captain of this ship, right? And that captain of that ship can steer you into the abyss. You very well could be going along for a ride into the fire.
Yeah, and Zishan, thanks for sharing those thoughts. I think that's exactly what we should be doing to make sure that people are aware of these different types of movements that are basically somehow getting into the mainstream politics, and then these candidates are being funded, which in fact are going against the Muslim issues. And somehow people are being deceived that, oh, they are somehow for the Muslim Ummah or for the Muslims of our American Muslims. We also have Nadia Ahmed, who has just joined us. So I would like to welcome Nadia. Assalamu alaikum, Nadia. How are you doing?
Walaikum salam. Thank you for having me here today.
Sure, absolutely. We're discussing about the role of an American Muslim, role of an American Muslim voter, and we would like to obviously get your thoughts about it. And if you also want to introduce yourself, I mean, to our viewers, that would be great. Would appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Zishan, for having me, and thank you, Zishan, for also being the guest on the show.
Sure.
I think it's really important to kind of contextualize all of this in terms of what we're doing in terms of politics. So my background is in law. I have two law degrees. One is a general law degree at JD, and the other one is a environmental and natural resources law. I have a master's in that, and I'm barred in Florida and in Colorado. And I'm a law professor right now, and I teach business organizations, property law, and environmental law. And so what I see, from my background, not only in corporate governance with business organizations as well as with property issues, I see there's a lot of issues relating to what we have as American Muslims. So it's not just foreign policy issues, but general social justice issues, relating to, banking, finance, property, land use, like all these issues that affect us as it's not just Muslims, but Americans. And so I think we're starting to see issue-based advocacy, not just on foreign policy, but also on the domestic policy front too. And so when we see that, like in the bigger context, I think we're able to put forward our voices, not just as this minute minority, but as a part of the larger fabric of American society. And for us to do that effectively, I think we have to really be able to speak truth to power. And I think that for many decades, we've really cowered. And I think that we have to understand Islam did not come to this country as only in the past the past few decades, during that wave of immigration, but Islam came here on slave ships. And I think that that's something that we need to understand, is that we just had the Indigenous Peoples Day / Columbus Day earlier this week. And so as a part of that history, we have to see that as Muslims, we're not here as this foreign force. We've been here for centuries, and I think we have to own that. And when we do that, I think we can speak as forcefully as other communities have. The same way that Native Americans have, the same way that African Americans have in this country, is that we have a right to be here. We've been here and helped shape the development of this country. And when we do that, when we really change our framework about that, it really changes the way that we are going to push forward our policy platforms.
Excellent, Nadia. Very well said. And if I'm not mistaken, you're also one of the top delegates for the Biden campaign as well for 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
So I actually, with Iranian American Hania Joe Barnes, we were actually delegates for the Bernie Sanders, and we worked to form a coalition of Muslim delegates, and we put forward policy platforms, and our recommendations were based on what we did as delegates. And so I think the work that we did as delegates was really novel in the sense that we weren't just a few individuals working haphazardly here and there. And I think the pandemic also brought that upon, is that we started to organize way in advance of the Democratic National Convention. We had about 18 individuals who were also delegates work together to co-author a document that put forward a new policy platform for Muslim Americans in this country. And we had also another 70 people who endorsed that document who were also delegates. And this was the first time there was ever a concerted effort made by Muslims to put forward policy documents. If it had been done before, it had not been done to this stage and this level. And this was because we all worked together as a team. We put aside our differences, worked together as both Biden delegates and and Bernie delegates when we did this. And so of the 17-page document that we put together, 16 points were actually adopted by the DNC, and they were submitted and incorporated into the 2020 Democratic platform. And so I thought
yeah. Go ahead.
And so when we were able to do that, I think we all saw the power of our collective action. And I thought that, we were put in there everything we wanted. It wasn't anything we held back anything. We were strong about Medicare for all. We were strong about the Green New Deal. We were strong about Black Lives Matter. And we were strong on issues of Palestine, Kashmir, all places where Muslims were suffering. We really put all of that forward forcefully. And I think that's really kind of a shift in the American Muslim political scene, is that we're starting to advocate for ourselves where we want to. And part of that is because as Bernie delegates, we felt that, for me, I'm 40 years old. It was the first time I felt like I belonged to this country. And that's a big deal that I was born and raised here, and my parents were here too. I never felt like I belonged in this country. And so for me, it was also a matter of taking ownership in our democracy and seeing other people.
So Nadia, so if I may interject for a second, and if I can also ask Zishan before I let him go. Zishan is also one of the activists and Muslim activists, and Zishan, I would ask you the same question that Nadia just somehow segued us into this very important element of our lives, that who are we, right? I mean, I proudly call myself a Muslim and a Pakistani, a Texan, an American, in that sequence. And I learned that from VP Pence. Because VP Pence obviously says that, I'm a Christian, and then I am obviously from Indiana, or I don't know, or a Republican, I think, and then an American. So do you belong here, Zishan? Let me just ask you, because Nadia's sort of what I got from her, that, she at least now feel engaged in the American process. So I would ask you the same question to you, that are you feeling that now you have a more political engagement now, or prior to coming into 2020?
I definitely feel like now, because of the divide that's occurred within the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party, has had issues within it, and we've been kind of told our whole lives that this is the party that you go with no matter what, because it's the lesser of two evils. But right now you've had a divide occur within it, and you've had progressive voices that have separated themselves from the moderates. And this actually resonated with me more, as well as a lot of people, that are ranged between 25 to 45, because we finally see, the line, a line that we never thought existed, we know is here because we all felt it. And now we know which side we belong on. And this side, the progressive side, demands, correcting the DNC, correcting, what's occurred within this party to line up with what we believe, and these voices stand against corruption. They stand against, the lobbying. Bernie Sanders was the captain of these voices.
Excellent.
And, that was the individual that led this charge, and we followed in his path.
Perfect. Zishan, I would love to continue discussion with you as well, but I'm going to wrap up with my last question with Nadia, and then obviously feel free to stay engaged in our next broadcast next week as well, because every Saturday, 7 p.m. Central Time or 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So thank you, Zishan, for
having me. I appreciate that.
Sure, you're very welcome. Absolutely. Have a good one. So Nadia, if I may ask you, what would you like to tell our viewers in terms of people who are watching? How can they get themselves more politically engaged? Meaning, I want more delegates, first of all, from our community. I also want more people who are engaged on a daily basis, because politics is not that you're just going to go and vote once in 4 years or once in 2 years in midterm elections, or there are voters who only vote in general elections or during presidential elections, and then there are people who don't even get engaged at the political level, at the local level, as well as the state level and then federal level. How are you going to articulate that? And if you can give very few basic steps for people who have been here all their lives, or people who have migrated in the past 30, 40 years, or maybe they just came here recently.
Absolutely. So I think what's an important part to recognize also is that, even though we're advocating and working on the national presidential election, what we also need to remember is that all politics is local. And so it's important for us to get involved with our county parties. And I think it's also important to get involved, not just as Democrats, but also as Republicans. That I think that we shouldn't just focus on one issue, one primary, because we're a large monolith community. And I think that's an important part of it, is that and the reason I say that is because Democrats have really taken our votes for granted. And I'm seeing also, and I don't think it's going to see much traction on it, even in the Republican Party starting to reach out to Muslims in Florida, because they're seeing that this is a tight election. And I think that when we can see our collective power and not only advocating on our issues, we're going to know that we have to do that on a bipartisan basis as well, and to be able to draw in people to our conversation to do that. In addition to that, we also have to when we get involved at the local level, I think we have to also be ready to put the time in to do that. And so, for example, my husband and I, we both serve as precinct co-captains for our local precinct. So I think that's like a very small way, like it's the lowest level of office that you can hold. And it really, I think it gives us a eye into what happens with the political process at the local level. And another thing that I've been involved with is voter protection work since about 2004, and that's another avenue for political engagement as well, as to protect the vote. That's really because I'm also like half Pakistani, half Indian, and I see that this issue of elections and election security is a big issue, and I think we have to really secure our democracy and not only think about it in the way of having a free and fair election, but also about the free press. I think that is what is also very critical, is about being able to engage our voices and being able to speak to ourselves. Another group that I gotten involved with was the Central Florida Climate Group, and this is like their inaugural steering committee. And one of the action items that we had a meeting last week, and what we felt like, what is one of the things that really motivated you to get involved? And for me, and for I think most of the people in that small group, was that we wanted to be able to speak for ourselves. We didn't want to have our voices muzzled. And I think that's part of what this like schism that Zishan Hussein was talking about earlier within the rifts within the Democratic Party, is that we felt that we couldn't bring our whole selves, like our authentic selves, to the table. And until we do that, I think that we'll feel like we won't be able to be engaged. If we feel like we have to not say this or that, then we're not going to want to get involved. But when we know we can say, this is what we feel about this, is what we think about this, then I think we're going to be able to not only convince ourselves to do it and put the time and effort into it, but also to convince the fellow people that we know, as well as our friends and neighbors and our family members.
And if I may add to that, I'm also seeing and observing, because I've been engaged obviously with the community and people from all different walks of life for decades now, through my radio broadcasting and TV broadcasting, and then now with social media. And alhamdulillah, mashallah, a lot of people have been following me throughout these years, and I'm very blessed, alhamdulillah. And what I have observed, that I'm not seeing a lot of independent thinkers from our community, meaning I want people, if they are in Republican Party, to remain in those trenches. But I hardly see any voices from the Republican Party when there was a Muslim ban. And where did they go? Did they go somewhere hiding in some cave somewhere? So the problem that I see is we are living right here in this free society, and people, perhaps because of paranoia, or maybe because of the fear of I don't know what, they don't even speak up, because silence means consent. And I didn't even see a single person who basically walk across the aisle and at least joined, and I'm talking about, for example, Houston, Texas, where there are so many Republicans as well, but I hardly saw any Republican or Muslim Republican who basically was there with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee when I was there. In fact, took my son to the airport as well when hundreds and thousands of people were stranded and they were literally detained. And there was no administrative policy that was clear cut at that time. And that's something that anyone can do. So I don't understand that. And I would like to ask you as well that why are we not seeing those independent thinkers and independent voices and people who are literally smart enough to say enough is enough? You could be a Republican, but at the same time, there are so many Republicans who have joined the Lincoln Project and they are openly against Trump.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that what we have really lost in our community, and this is, I think, this part of it is systematic, and part of it is our fault as well. Is that after 9/11, there was a very strong effort to silence Muslim voices. Yeah. I remember after 9/11, I organized an event at the local Holiday Inn, as a call to action, and I had people from a Muslim community. I also called in local law enforcement because I wanted them to be aware that, we're concerned about our civil rights being violated. And I also had somebody come in from the Department of Justice who flew out. And this is somebody that comes out for community services, like anytime there's a disturbance. So, for example, when you had a situation in Baltimore, you had a situation in Ferguson, Missouri, this individual would fly out to try to kind of steer this disruptions that were happening. And so I think they felt at that time that the activism that we were doing was disruptive. And I saw also kind of slowly, like, the Muslim community would kind of want to walk away from this level of activism because of the fear in our community, which is understandable because you had so many people that were being detained, imprisoned. You saw like all these issues that were happening, and it just really what put so much fear in people that to the extent I felt like they couldn't even breathe. And I think now, now 20 years later, almost 20 years later, people are starting to really wake up and see things differently. And I see even now, when I teach in the law school, the students that I have now have grown up in a very different world. They were born the year the O.J. Simpson trial happened.
Right.
And so they were very young when 9/11 happened. And so they didn't see that same change that happened. But I think though now people are starting to wake up more, and they're starting to speak out more. In fact, today we actually had a program that was geared toward making calls for Joe Biden in Florida. And this program had originally been designed as a program that would be a Muslim Day of voter outreach through the Florida Democratic Party.
Perfect.
The Florida Democratic Party, actually ended up canceling that event. And so we had to do the event on our own.
Got it. Okay, perfect. So Nadia, thank you so much for joining the program today. I really appreciate that you took time out of your busy schedule. Good luck with all your activism and engagement in your precinct, and as well as a delegate, and especially all the work that you're doing in Florida. And I will definitely try to get in touch with you again, in a week or two. Again, this is your platform as well, so feel free to give updates to everyone, because a lot of people who really need to know what's going on at the ground level, because the ground realities are completely different as compared to what we see on Fox News or on CNN, because people are paying attention. And if you pay attention closely, then you will obviously get excited about so many good things that are happening in our country. This is our country, and we love our homeland, and we are proud Americans. But at the same time, the freedom comes with a responsibility.
Absolutely. I think that's a very true statement.
All right. Thank you so much, Nadia. Good luck to you and your husband and family. All right? Stay safe.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. And Khawatine Hazrat, this is the whole idea in terms of getting engaged in the political process. If you are a Republican, you're a Muslim Republican, stay engaged, but at the same time, raise your voice. Silence means consent. And if you are a Democrat, great, but at the same time, pay attention to local races. And at the same time, you can always switch votes for better candidates, because at the end of the day, are you going to take party loyalty as more important as compared to loyalty to the country and loyalty to elect people who represent us and who actually condemn crimes against humanity and things like that. So let's be very focused on this. और सबसे important चीज साथ में कि ये जो पैरानोया है, सब कुछ है, यहाँ पर आपके राइट्स हैं इस मुल्क के अंदर, और अगर आपको अपने बिल ऑफ राइट्स का नहीं पता, आपको फर्स्ट अमेंडमेंट, सेकंड, थर्ड, फोर्थ अमेंडमेंट इन सब का नहीं पता, तो भाई अब मालूम कर लें, क्योंकि सिर्फ पाकिस्तान और इंडिया की पॉलिटिक्स को देख देख कर जो है इस मुल्क में हम अपनी जिंदगी नहीं गुजार सकते। तो इस वक्त स्पीकिंग ऑफ पाकिस्तान एंड इंडिया, मैं यहाँ पर थोड़ा शेयर करना चाहूंगा आपके साथ जो खास तौर पर पॉलिटिक्स इन दी पाकिस्तानी पॉलिटिकल सर्कल कह लीजिए जो वहां पे चल रही है, बिकॉज बड़ी ही कह लें कि अजीब व गरीब किस्म की सूरत हाल हम खुद यानी कि देख रहे हैं, जो पाकिस्तानी पॉलिटिक्स में जो है इस वक्त रिसेंटली खास तौर पर हमें नजर आ रही है। और वो जो पॉलिटिक्स है, उस पॉलिटिक्स को अगर हम देखें तो उस पॉलिटिक्स में खास तौर पर जो एक कैरेक्टर जिनको मैं कहूंगा, एंड दैट्स नवाज शरीफ, वो हमें नजर आते हैं बहुत ही डिफरेंट अंदाज में, और उनका अंदाज जो है वो बड़ा ही कह लीजिए कि अनोखा अंदाज है, क्योंकि इसमें सबसे अहम चीज जो मुझे नजर आई है वो ये कि ये अब पाकिस्तान की जो फौज है उसको ललकार रहे हैं। और अभी रिसेंटली डॉन में भी रिपोर्ट हुआ, नवाज एक्यूज द सिक्योरिटी एस्टेब्लिशमेंट ऑफ ऑर्केस्ट्रेटिंग हिज आउस्टर ब्रिंगिंग इमरान टू पावर, और उसमें इन्होंने डायरेक्टली जो है ज़हीरुल इस्लाम जो है उनको खास तौर पर निशाना बनाया। तो उन्होंने कहा कि ऐसा चीफ ज़हीरुल इस्लाम जो है उन्होंने बेसिकली कहा था कि फौरन ये जाएं, और फिर इसको क्लियर किया इस स्टेटमेंट को ज़हीरुल इस्लाम ने, जो रिटायर्ड लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल हैं, ISI के चीफ भी रहे, और उन्होंने कहा, आई कोट, आई नेवर सेंट एनीवन टू कन्वे एनी सच मैसेज टू नवाज, दिस इज एब्सोल्युटली रॉन्ग, अनकोट। और फिर साथ में यहीं पे नहीं, फिर ये गुजरावाला जो PMLN का स्ट्रॉन्ग होल्ड भी है, उसमें आप देखें ये मूंछों के साथ जो है राना सनाउल्लाह साहब जो हैं ये भी नजर आ रहे हैं आपको, और इतना बड़ा मजमा, और ये तमाम पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज इसमें मिल गई हैं, जिनको ये देखिए आप खास तौर पर जो सूरत हाल है। और फिर ये कमेंट्स जो आए हैं, ये अभी हाल ही में चीफ ऑफ आर्मी स्टाफ पाकिस्तान के जनरल कमर जावेद बाजवा और ISI चीफ लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल फैज हमीद जो हैं, इन्होंने अभी की ऑपोजिशन फिगर्स और जो ऑपोजिशन के लोग थे उनको काउंसिल किया था कि भाई ना घसीटें, ड्रैग ना करें मिलिट्री को पॉलिटिकल इश्यूज में। और फिर सामने फिर ये रैली और ये तमाम चीजें जो है नजर आ रही हैं। और सिर्फ यही नहीं, खासतौर पर जो सूरत हाल है क्रिटिसिज्म की गवर्नमेंट की भी, उसमें नवाज जो उन्होंने ब्लास्ट किया PTI लेड गवर्नमेंट को, फेलिंग टू डू इट्स जॉब। अरे भाई, इनको आए हुए भी 2 साल हुए हैं, आप तो 30-40 साल से इस मुल्क के ऊपर राइज थे, 3 दफा वजीर आजम बन गए, अब आपको एकदम दर्द जाग आया है पूरे मुल्क और आवाम के सामने कि जी फौज जो इन्वॉल्व है, फौज बचपने से इन्वॉल्व है यानी अगर हम अपने बचपने को देखें और या फिर हम पाकिस्तान के बचपने को देखें, तो जाहिर सी बात है कि पाकिस्तान जिस तरह तारीख है पाकिस्तान की, और फिर 1951 के बाद जब लियाकत अली खान असैसिनेट होते हैं लियाकत बाग में, तो फौज जाहिर सी बात है सामने आ गई। और उसके बाद हमने देखा कितनी दफा मार्शल लॉ लगा, सब कुछ लगा। अब तो पाकिस्तान को सोचना चाहिए और पाकिस्तानी अवाम को सोचना चाहिए किस तरीके से फौज का जो रोल है उसको बल्कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनली अलाउ कर दें, वरना तो हर फौज में जर्नल जो है जो आ रहा है वो फिर अपनी ही ओथ की खिलाफवर्जी कर रहा है, और वो अब करना चाहे भी और ना करना चाहे तो भी जो पॉलिटिशियंस हैं वो भी इनके पास पहुंचते हैं, और जो नहीं पहुंचना चाहते वो भी कहते हैं सर जी हमारी बारी जो है कब आएगी, साडी बारी जो है वो भी जरा आप लगा दीजिए। तो ये एक अजीबो गरीब किस्म का तमाशा जो है वो एक नजर आ रहा है हमें पाकिस्तानी सियासत में। अभी हाल ही में जो वजीरिस्तान में और वहां पर फौज के भी कुछ एहलकार और सिक्योरिटी के भी जो लोग हैं वो जहाँ भाग बल्कि शहीद हुए, और उस पर फिर वजीर आजम इमरान खान जो है ट्वीट कर दी मुजम्मत की। तो अब ये भी एक अफसोस के साथ कहना पड़ रहा है, हमें तो इस बात की मुजम्मत करनी चाहिए कि भाई वजीर आजम जो है क्या सिर्फ ट्वीट्स करते रहेंगे मुजम्मतों के और तकारीर करते रहेंगे। और कश्मीर में हमने देखा कि किस तरीके से सिचुएशन जो अगस्त 5 2019 के बाद अब तो 1.5 ईयर बल्कि 1.5 साल होने को आ रहा है, और जिस तरीके से एक इलीगल ऑक्यूपेशन है वहां पर, जो आर्टिकल रेजोल्यूशन 47 जो पास हुई यूनाइटेड नेशंस में 1948 में, तमाम चीजें मौजूद है। किसी के ज्यादा शोर मचाने से कहने से थोड़ी हो जाएगा कि पैलेस्टाइन इशू जो है खत्म, कश्मीर इशू जो है खत्म। दीज आर वेरी सीरियस इश्यूज। जब ईस्ट तिमोर जो है वो मुल्क बन सकता है, जब साउथ सुडान मुल्क बन सकता है, ये तो बिल्कुल हाल ही में बने, तो फिर पैलेस्टाइन क्यों नहीं मुल्क बन सकता इंडिपेंडेंट? तो कश्मीर जो है वो क्यों नहीं इंडिपेंडेंट बन सकता मुल्क? बिल्कुल बनना चाहिए। दिस इज 2020, ये कोई स्टोन एज की बात थोड़ी हो रही है। तो इसलिए वी हैव टू रिकॉग्नाइज दीज आर सीरियस इश्यूज, और ये सीरियस इश्यूज जो है दीज आर इंपॉर्टेंट इश्यूज, बिकॉज एट द एंड ऑफ द डे वी स्टैंड फॉर इक्वालिटी, लिबर्टी एंड जस्टिस फॉर ऑल। तो अगर हम इन चीजों पर बिलीव करते हैं, then you have to raise these concerns, even if you're in a Republican Party, if you're an independent thinker, or if you're a Democrat. और अगर ये चीजें आपको समझ में नहीं आ रही हैं, then I'm sorry to say there are some serious issues that's going on in your own mindset. और ये चीजें जो हैं ये हमें बहुत जरूरी है कि हम इनको समझें। लोग फेसबुक के ऊपर भी जो है कमेंट्स कर रहे होते हैं, सो थैंक यू सलीमा गुल फॉर योर कमेंट्स एज वेल। That is right, Zishan. This is our country. Absolutely. This is my country. And I am passionate about my country. And I will not let anyone to take advantage of America or any enemies, foreign or domestic. ये तो खुद बल्कि जो ओथ लिए जाते हैं, जब सदर ओथ लेता है तो वो खुद ये बात कह रहा होता है। तो कहने का मकसद जो वो ये है कि we have to be very politically savvy, and at the same time pay attention to people who are engaged, and at the same time agree to disagree. If you think कि आप अमेरिकन मुस्लिम हैं और फिर भी आपने जो है ट्रम्प को सपोर्ट करना है, तो भाई फिर आपको गालियां पड़नी चाहिए, क्योंकि अगर आप सेकंड टर्म में भी चाह रहे हैं कि ये आ जाए, जबकि आज ट्रम्प ने खुद ही कह दिया है कि अगर वो बैड कैंडिडेट, ये द हिल को मैं कोट कर रहा हूँ और आज ही इनका दिया है, तमाम मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया में भी ये कमेंट गया है इनका कि अगर ये हार गए इलेक्शन, वो भी वर्स्ट कैंडिडेट से, तो ही विल लीव द कंट्री। क्यों भाई, क्यों आप छोड़ के जाना चाह रहे हैं इस मुल्क को? इसलिए क्योंकि 9 सिविलियन लॉ सूट जो आपका इंतजार कर रहे हैं, और अब जो है आपको मुश्किल हो रही है। आप क्यों अपने जो आपके सपोर्टर्स हैं और बाज हमारे बेचारे अमेरिकन मुस्लिम जो है क्या करेंगे? वो तो बेचारे घबरा रहे हैं, परेशान हैं कि उनके टैक्स बढ़ जाएगा, उनको $10 एक्स्ट्रा टैक्स में देने पड़ेंगे, तो उनकी जो लाइफस्टाइल है उसके अंदर बड़ी प्रॉब्लम आ जाएगी। शर्म आनी चाहिए हमें कि हम सिर्फ इन चंद बातों की वजह से कर रहे हैं। कोई डिफंड नहीं कर रहा पुलिस को, ना ही क्या कहते हैं बाइडेन ने क्लियर कट कहा है। लिहाजा अपने जो एक बबल में आप रह रहे हैं, वो एक ऐसा छोटा सा बबल है जो एक सिंपल रिपब्लिकन पार्टी में आपने एक बबल बना लिया, एक वर्चुअल रियलिटी बना ली है। तो इसलिए दुनिया जब हम पे हंस रही है, तो नाउ द वर्ल्ड शुड नो कि भाई हमारे जो जमीन है वो क्लियर हैं, और हम जो है वो बाइडेन को खुलेआम जो है सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं। लेकिन अब आपके ऊपर लोगों को हंसना चाहिए, क्योंकि शेम ऑन मी, एक दफा कोई बेवकूफ बना दे, तो जिसको कहते हैं ना कि फूल मी वंस शेम ऑन मी, फूल मी ट्वाइस, आई मीन फूल मी वंस शेम ऑन यू, फूल मी ट्वाइस शेम ऑन मी, राइट? तो फूल मी ट्वाइस अगर आप हैं तो आप शेम आप पे होनी चाहिए, जो आप पाकिस्तान को छोड़कर जो दुनिया भर में पाकिस्तान के अलावा हमारे अपने अमेरिका के जो एलाइज हैं, यूके हो गया, जर्मनी, कनाडा, फ्रांस और तमाम वेस्टर्न नेशंस भी हैं, वो हम पे हंस रही हैं, ट्रम्प पे हंस रही हैं, और हमारे एलाइज और एलाइज के जो लीडर्स हैं वो हम पे हंस रहे हैं। तो अब उनको चाहिए आप पे हंसें, जो अमेरिकन मुस्लिम्स हैं। और मुझे ये लग रहा है कि बहुत से लोग जो हैं वो नवंबर 3 के बाद जब जो बाइडेन इंशाल्लाह जीत जाएंगे, क्योंकि इस बार ओवरवेलमिंगली मेजॉरिटी से इंशाल्लाह जिस तरीके से रैकेट ब्रेकिंग लोगों ने वोट्स दिए हैं, इवन हैरिस काउंटी के अंदर, जो कि वन ऑफ द मोस्ट पॉपुलस काउंटी है पूरे अमेरिका में, क्योंकि ह्यूस्टन इज द 4th लार्जेस्ट सिटी। और आप तो ऑब्वियसली ईस्ट कोस्ट, वेस्ट कोस्ट, सब जगह जहां पर भी रह रहे हैं और देख रहे हैं प्रोग्राम, तो आप सोचिए कि फर्स्ट डे जो अर्ली वोटिंग का रैकेट स्मैश हुए हैं, और इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज और इलेक्टोरल वोट्स में भी आप देखिएगा इंशाल्लाह ट्रम्प जो है वो ऐसी लैंडस्लाइड, क्योंकि लोगों ने देख लिया जो तमाशा हो रहा है। और ना रिपब्लिक्स के अंदर इस वक्त रिपब्लिकन्स में इतना जोशो खरोश है, तो इस वक्त अमेरिकन मुस्लिम्स जो मैं देख रहा हूँ जो रिपब्लिकन पार्टी में, उनका बड़ा जोशो खरोश नजर आ रहा है। तो आप मुझे पता है कितने जो है वो नवंबर 3 के बाद झूठ बोलेंगे और कहेंगे हाँ जी हमने भी जो को दिया था, जाहिर बात है अब किसने देखा या कौन पूछेगा, लेकिन लोगों को चाहिए बताएं। और जो आपको नहीं बताएगा किसको वोट दिया, वैसे तो पर्सनल राइट होता है, जिसकी मर्जी है भाई, इट्स अ फ्री कंट्री, जो बताना चाहे ना बताना चाहे, लेकिन जो नहीं बता रहा समझ ले इंसान के इसने ट्रम्प को दिया है। और क्यों दिया है वो हम सब जानते हैं, लालच है इसके पीछे और 50 बातें। सेल्फ एस्टीम मेरा ख्याल में शायद नहीं है, लो सेल्फ एस्टीम है, सिक्योरिटी कॉम्प्लेक्स में भी, जबकि समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि यहाँ व्हाइट सुप्रीमेसिस्ट ने जिस तरह नाक में दम करके रखा हुआ है, जिस तरह हेट क्राइम बढ़ गया। मुस्लिम बैन कोई मसला नहीं है, आप थोड़ी थे जो रेफ्यूजीज में बेचारे अपनी फैमिलीज को लेकर आ रहे हैं, बच्चों के साथ, अपनी बीवी के साथ। आप अगर दूसरे एंड पे इस पर खड़े होते तो फिर हम आपसे पूछते, नहीं आपकी तो अच्छी जिंदगी गुजर रही है, सो ऑब्वियसली आपको थोड़ी कोई मसला है। तो ये वो प्रॉब्लम्स हैं जिसमें ये हमारा एज ए मुस्लिम, क्या ये हमारे वैल्यूज है कि हम जो है कोई कमजोर हो, कोई वीक हो, ऑप्रेस्ड हो, उसके लिए नहीं खड़ा होना। हमने अपना देखना है भाई, अपने मजे लगे या नहीं लगे। तो थोड़ा सा ख्याल कर लें, अपने जमीर को देख लें। इस दुनिया में हमें हमेशा नहीं रहना है। दूसरों के जब हम काम आएंगे, भले अगर चंद टैक्स डॉलर 4 या 5 लाख डॉलर जो बना रहे हैं, उनसे जो ज्यादा लोग बना रहे हैं उनको जब देना पड़ेगा, 4 लाख से कम है तो किसी के ऐसे टैक्स नहीं पड़ रहा है। लेकिन वही डर है कि भाई आखिर में जो है देना पड़ जाएंगे जैसे। तो भाई ये तो मल्टी मिलियनियर या बिलियनियर है। आप तो अगर $10,000 बचा भी लिए आपने, तो यहाँ जब वॉरेन बफे की सेक्रेटरी वॉरेन बफेट से ज्यादा टैक्स पे कर रही है, तो आपको वो भी नाइंसाफी नजर नहीं आती। तो कहना मकसद ही कि प्लीज किसको आप बेवकूफ बना रहे हैं, इन चीजों को हमने एक दूसरे के साथ शेयर करना है और इन चीजों को हाईलाइट करना है, ताकि हम एटलीस्ट लोगों को आईना दिखाते रहें। और शर्म से चुल्लू भर में डूब मरने का मुकाम जो है वो जाहिर सी बात है उन्हीं को ये बात बताई जा सकती है जिनको शर्म नाम या हया नाम की कोई बात भी हो। लेकिन फिर वही वाली बात आ जाती है कि जब एलाइज भी हमारे और पूरी दुनिया हम पे हंस रही है, तो मैं ये चाहता हूं कि एटलीस्ट 2020 के इलेक्शन के बाद दुनिया उन लोगों पे हंसे जिन्होंने फिर ट्रंप को वोट दिए। वैसे तो इंशाल्लाह मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है कि जो बाइडेन जो है वो नेक्स्ट प्रेसिडेंट होगा अमेरिका का। तो इसके साथ आप लोग का बहुत शुक्रिया प्रोग्राम में शामिल होने का। नेक्स्ट सैटरडे 7 बजे आपका ये प्लेटफॉर्म है, इसमें जरूर शामिल हो, ज्वाइन करें और अपने कमेंट्स भी देते रहें और शेयर करें इसको। एंड प्लीज सब्सक्राइब जीशान ऑन एयर चैनल एज वेल ऑन यूट्यूब। एंड थैंक यू सो मच फॉर वॉचिंग and thank you so much for tuning in. And at the same time, you can always agree or disagree, or you can agree to disagree. At the same time, God bless America and please stay safe and healthy. और अपनी दुआ में मुझे और मेरी फैमिली को शामिल रखिए। अल्लाह हाफिज, खुदा हाफिज।